My eyes slowly blink open and readjust to the brightness, what little there is. The sun is obscured by a thick layer of fog, making it impossible to estimate the time of day. I prop up my elbows and push myself up. The ground is hard and rocky, but that isn't the only reason I am eager to get on my feet. I check my surroundings. The harsh, craggy earth of the island is interlaced with twisting vines and gnarled branches. Beside me, Bemelle and Lou are still fast asleep. The guide, however, is nowhere to be seen. I realize that I don't recall seeing him lay down with everyone. It's likely he left us hours ago. There is a creeping silence here. I can't help but shudder at the hollow, aching feeling inside of me. It refuses to relent. I shift my weight back and forth, unsure of what to do with myself. Memories of last night's harrowing journey flicker through my mind. Bemelle wakes suddenly, rising with alarm and startling Lou awake as well. My mouth opens, then shuts, and after a moment of fumbling, a word finally escapes.
Hello.
Bemelle gives me a gentle smile and makes his way over to me. Behind him, Lou remains on the ground.
Morning.
Morning, I'm so glad you are alive. A pocket of quiet descends over us. Bemelle sighs. The atmosphere is weighing on him already.
We should eat something soon. I don't trust what is on this island, so I'll have to split my supplies with Lou.
I still have a few rations left. I'd be happy to contribute.
Don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'm not hungry.
Lou's back is turned against us. He still hasn't cut enough of the dirt.
You should eat. You have to keep your energy up for the day ahead.
Bemelle speaks encouragingly, like he's coaxing a nervous horse. Lou buries his head deeper into his knees as he curls into a tighter ball.
No thanks.
Bemelle lets slip a small chuckle.
Well, it seems I've lost my role as the childish one around here.
I look at Bemelle and smile weakly at him. However, he's frowning hard. I understand. Lou does not know what he speaks of, and the one who would isn't here. A distinct rustling of the leaves around catches my attention. The guide appears, emerging from the thicket. Bemelle glares at him as he makes his way over. Lou doesn't seem to notice as he is still facing away.
The Nixi will not tread on land in daylight. However, being near the shoreline is still dangerous. If you leave the center of the island, remain cautious.
So what, now you care? Now we are worth protecting? I sound so bitter, I know, but I'm so angry. I'm still angry about Margaret, about losing her, so. And part of me blames the guide, and I cannot help it, I'm bitter.
Before the sun sets, I will be in this area. It would be wise to meet me here before nightfall.
Why didn't you stay with us last night?
I sharply turn towards Bemelle as he snarls and confronts the guide.
If you had just been there, none of this would have happened. She didn't have to die.
I agree. The guide stands unflinching and completely unaffected.
If all you're going to do is leave everyone to be lost, then why bother guiding us at all?
Despite Bemelle's severe words, the guide apparently considers his piece here finished. He turns towards the forested area from which he came.
Wait!
Bemelle calls out to the guide, reaching towards him. Before he can make contact, I quickly place a hand on his shoulder. He lowers his arm to his side, though I can feel wrath emanating from him. We stay this way until the guide disappears from view. Bemelle begins to kick at the ground, spraying tiny pieces of gravel about.
Bemelle, I know you're angry, but regardless of our feelings, we need the guide. If he leaves us, we'll all die.
And we've done so well with him?
I give him a cold glance. We won't even know which bridge to take without the guide. Bemelle knows that this needs to stop. There are people counting on us to make it back, and what of Lou?
We can't afford to lose our way.
Kikka the Steadfast right there. The anger etched into his expression fades into sadness.
You're right, Kikka. You're right.
He weakly swats his hand in front of his face, as if he's trying to shoo away his racing thoughts.
I can't stay here right now.
I nod, allowing him to leave alone. Lou meekly calls to me. I turn around to face him, though I don't speak. He's standing some distance away. He fidgets and glances over to the side before returning his gaze to my eyes. He gestures for me to come closer. I comply. He begins to whisper at me, but he fumbles with his words and I can't make out anything he says. I look at him inquisitively. Finally, he speaks up enough to be clear.
I'm sorry for what happened last night.
He speaks quickly as he looks up at me, eyes filled with sorrow. He shifts his focus downwards.
You would have been better off without me.
Do you mean when I had to stay behind?
Yes, you and your friend were almost completely abandoned. You got caught up in the fire, and it was a disaster.
It's all right. Nothing happened in the end. Besides, it isn't your fault that things turned out this way.
It was closer to being my fault than anyone else's. I wasn't supposed to be here, and all I did was get in the way. The guide was right about me. I knew from the beginning that it would be like this too. I never should have stayed.
Finishing his thought, he sniffles as he turns away. Suddenly, I feel a strong surge of emotions rip through me. Everything is falling apart, and I do not have the power to change this. Quietly, I speak. I need to be alone. I have to see Bemelle. Lou, wait. Oh my. He seems a bit upset, but he's all the time upset. God damn it. I need to be alone. These dudes. Oh. Time decisions. Lou stops moving. He doesn't turn to face me. I hesitate as well, also unsure of how to proceed.
Would you be willing to speak with me?
He turns around to face me and his eyes are brimming with tears. He smiles slightly.
I could do that.
I find the will to smile lightly back at him. Lou walks closer to me, then pauses. After watching me for a moment, he turns his eyes to the ground, waiting for me to do something. I just stare at him, unsure. After a brief silence, I finally sigh.
Lou, can I ask you a difficult question?
He flinches.
I don't think I'm the person you want to ask difficult questions.
No one else can answer this one. It's about you.
Oh, in that case, I'm really not the kind of person to give good answers.
By his tone, it seems like he's trying to make light of the situation. But to me, it still just sounds sad.
I understand.
He squeezes his eyes shut and gives no reply. Despite being clearly frustrated, it doesn't look like it's me he's upset with. Soon he reopens his eyes, looking directly at me.
You can ask me anything. I'll try to answer. But I hope you have a lot of patience.
He smiles slightly.
Thank you.
So, what do you want to know?
Have you lost someone in the lake?
Yes, I would like to know that too. Lou stumbles back a step from shock.
I'm sorry for prying, but when we found you, it seemed like you were apologizing to someone, and the way you've acted since makes me think that something is wrong. Something beyond even being out on Sinnlos.
Precisely, yes. I give him a sympathetic look. Why am I even asking him this question? Do I really want to help him? Or am I trying to forget what happened to us by talking about someone else's misfortune? When Lou speaks, his voice is barely above a whisper.
I hate myself. I can't do anything.
Oh, poor person, that is hard. That is so hard way to live.
You don't have to say any more. I was wrong to ask you about it.
He's opening up to you, Kikka, and you seem like you are freaking out now. Which I kind of can get, but perhaps it might do good for him to open up a bit. To tell us his story. His brows are furrowed and he smiles in a self-deprecating way.
I'm sorry.
Lou laughs sharply at himself.
Don't be. I'm not worth the concern.
How can you say that? What have you done that was wrong in this moment? It was only my mistake.
You think that because you don't know?
Know what? And if you want me to know, tell me.
I do not believe you.
Lou's eyes bore into me.
I'm not upset because I lost someone out here. I'm upset because I can't bring myself to lie about it.
So you lost someone, you are not upset about losing someone here. If I understood correctly, I might be mistaken here. You spoke about earlier about your father and your difficult relationship with him. Is it your father that you lost?
What?
You gave me the perfect opportunity to cover up the pathetic truth of what actually happened. All I had to do was go along with your assumption. But when you're so direct, I can't keep my thoughts hidden. I'm too afraid of making a mistake and having the lie uncovered somehow.
Could it be that because you are not feeling bad about their death, you think you are worthless? Or somehow bad or wrong? I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm reading too much into this. The rest of the story might prove me completely wrong. Or might prove my thoughts completely wrong. But we'll see what will happen. He stares back at the ground and sighs.
Why do I have to be so terrible at this?
Bewilderment rings through my mind, one ear to the other. His words stir all sorts of babbling, jumbled emotions in me that battle it out for supremacy as I gawk. Who is... I don't know. Without looking up, Lou shakes his head.
See? You shouldn't waste your sympathies on someone like me. You should have left me to die.
Like a shot, my anger flares up.
Pull yourself together. I didn't leave you behind before, and I'm not going to do so now. The best thing you can do to help is put those kinds of thoughts in the back of your mind.
She really is Kikka the Steadfast, ain't she? Oh.
Or what? I won't make it to the other side?
He doesn't care if he dies or not. Lou laughs bitterly, his smile almost cruel.
If I thought joining you was a way to stay alive, I would have acted much differently. The only reason I came along is because I thought it might be nice to not die alone and forgotten.
Okay. My words sputter and die on my tongue. Lou continues his speech, ignoring my reaction.
The guide really didn't know what he was saying before. I asked him if I could go out on the bridges in the past. He told me not to. Said I couldn't handle it. I'm not sorry for ignoring the warning. This was something I had to do.
But why? Why you had to do it?
This was my only chance to prove I'm not worthless, or to finally accept that I was once and for all. And we know what the truth is.
You really hate yourself, don't you? This is really a tricky situation, but an interesting one as well. This is also like what depression does to your brain. It makes you believe that you are absolutely worthless. And it seems like he really believes that thought or that idea that he's not worth anything.
Stop.
I can no longer keep idly listening to him speak.
It doesn't have to be this way. You said yourself that it isn't over until it's completely over. There's still a possibility that...
No, there isn't.
My blood pounds in my veins. Instinctively, I place both my hands on his tightly wrapped upper arms.
I don't know what has happened to you, but if there's something you need to do, you can try again tomorrow night. You don't need to give up. You have value.
Lou closes his eyes again and smiles to himself. I maintain my grip on him, waiting for his response.
All right. I'll try to stay alive if you'll do something for me.
Okay, what is it that you wish me to do?
What is it?
Don't put yourself in danger for my sake anymore.
I cannot promise that. My fingers curl harder around his thin arms, wishing I could argue further, but I don't know what is going on in his head, and I might push him back into giving up. I don't have the luxury of trying to reach him a second time. I release him and take a step back.
Fine. I'll accept those terms.
We'll accept them for now, but if push comes to shove, I'm gonna save him.
Good. Now you might survive.
You need to survive too.
Mm-hmm. He laughs.
It goes without saying.
Lou smiles teasingly. His attitude is still difficult for me to grasp, but I attempt to smile in return. Thank you for caring about me. Say nothing. I'm gonna be kind. I can be steadfast and kind.
I know you don't want anything to happen to anyone else. That is admirable.
Lou says nothing. However, I do feel my words reached him. I wish he would let me help him, but I cannot find the way to do so. I can only trust that he will do his best to take care of himself now. It's better than him planning to let it end. I sigh wearily and yet somehow feel as though my resolve has been strengthened. At least for now.
I'm going to head out. I want to see how everything is on the island.
I'll make it easier by coming along. Then you won't ever have to check on me.
This time I am able to smile easily.
That would be good.
Happy to help.
He readily moves beside me and together we move out. Lou and I head through the wooded part of the island. There isn't anything that could be called a path, but we manage to pick our way through the bush quite well. Through a thinner stand of trees, we briefly catch sight of the guide standing on one of the beaches. He seems fine, but even though I'm sure he turned his head toward me, he makes no show of acknowledging us. We move on and eventually find Bemelle in a jagged clearing, leaning against a tree. He's already noticed us and is looking our way, smiling. As we get closer, I can pick up on the sadness behind his jovial expression.
How are you faring? Any problems?
Everything is fine. We came to check on you.
How kind. I've calmed down since then.
I'm glad to hear that. Is there any way I can help or anything you'd like to say?
He raises an eyebrow at that, his grin becoming markedly playful.
I didn't expect to see you so worried about me, Kikka.
I have to force myself not to avert my eyes at that comment, embarrassment flowing into me. Unexpectedly, Lou speaks up in a soft but penetrating voice.
I think she always cared. You just didn't notice.
For just a moment, Bemelle's mouth levels into a thin line, but in a blink, he's smirking again.
That could be. It makes sense.
He turns his beaming face towards me, and I hesitantly return a smile, albeit a much smaller one than his. Out of the corner of my eye, I notice Lou is timidly smiling my way too. Bemelle glances between Lou and I, noticing something between us. He does not mention it, however. Instead, he throws his arms out wide with a sour expression.
Have you seen the guide?
Nope. No, we haven't. Bemelle is clearly asking out of a sense of obligation, and and makes no secret that he's not pleased to be discussing the guide. I nod in response.
I saw him earlier. He is the same as always.
Good, good. In that case, I'm going to stretch my legs for a bit. I feel stiff from standing in one place for so long.
Lou and I both bid him a brief goodbye. Bemelle waves as he departs.
It's good to know the others are well.
We have nothing to do with our time now. Even I can't ignore the wistful tone in my voice. Something is tugging at my heart, trying to tear a piece away. Lou seems uncomfortable with my lowering mood. He stares out into the woods rather than at me.
I think I'll go to the shore.
His words snap me back hard to hard reality.
What? Why?
I saw something earlier that I'd like to check out.
The shoreline is dangerous. Whatever you saw could not be worth the risk.
Lou actually laughs, a sudden sound that's as close to sniggering as it is to sputtering.
Watching a Nix drag itself across the shore in the middle of the day would be worth the danger, in my opinion.
You are laughing now, but when the night comes, none of us will be laughing anymore. I give him a humorless, reprimanding look. I feel vaguely like I have used this phase to dissuade pets and young children from behaving poorly in the past.
I was only joking.
Thankfully, it seems to work on grown men as well. I hope he's telling the truth. For someone so nervous, he can be quite reckless.
I'm still going, though. Don't worry. I'll be careful. We talked about this.
He gives me a self-effacing lopsided smile.
You said you didn't want to make me watch out for you.
I'll be back soon. You won't even notice.
I sigh. Part of me wants to keep lecturing him on how serious this is. I just want him to be safe, but I fear I don't have the words to convey that without making the situation worse.
Fine.
Bemelle and I will come. I will come. Bemelle seems to need some time alone. I will come. Lou brightens.
Of course you can come. I'd enjoy that.
I get the feeling he was hoping I would say that. It's not as though I don't want to be around him. The farthest thing from it's the activity itself that's the problem. Despite my reservations, we head to the beach. Lou strides easily across the sand, his bare feet sinking down in the loose grains as he stretches his arms contentedly.
It is so much nicer out here.
I make sure to stay close behind him, just in case. I would not want him to go off on his own. Lou notices my position out of the corner of his eye. He isn't so distracted that he's forgotten I'm here, it seems. He takes a wide step back so we are side by side instead. I can't help but be surprised by his assertiveness, and it makes me grin nervously.
You know what I mean, right?
Yes. The shore has its positives.
I find it hard to navigate the loose sand in my boots, but Lou has little trouble here. There are only a few ragged bandages wrapping around his bare feet. I have to wonder how he has been faring thus far. The forest floor is rock hard and full of thorns. I clandestinely check for any signs of bleeding. Thankfully, there are no traces of it. It also does not escape me that losing one's shoes is an uncommon occurrence. They must have been stolen, or did he not have any to begin with? It's really hard to know, like, judging by the clothes he has, it's hard to tell whether he comes from a wealthier background, or it looks like the clothes fit him and it looks like they have been cut in a very precise way, which might indicate that they have been made especially for him or fitted especially for him, but it's hard to say. His clothes also look quite clean, so I could imagine that if he would have been, I don't know, begging for food on the streets, white parts of his clothes might not stay this clean. I don't know. Between my swirling thoughts and loose, quiet self-assurance, we have walked in silence for a bit. This could be a good chance to ask questions about his life, where he comes from, what he does for work, if he has any other family. However, I cannot help but assume he would shrink away from such attention. Lou catches my gaze and inclines his head, a whisper of a smirk on his lips.
Is there anything on your mind? Something you'd like to ask me, maybe?
Oh,
Yes, I'm surprised you brought attention to it.
Lou snickers in a self-aware sort of way.
When you're as suspicious as I am, it's pretty easy to guess that people will have questions.
I smile faintly. His openness is certainly appreciated, but the look fades as quickly as it appeared. I turn away.
I think I've asked you enough questions.
Lou's expression sinks into melancholy. He holds my eyes in his own, tightly locked and refusing to let go. Then he speaks, unbidden.
I've done odd jobs most of my life. The only title you could say I've had is messenger boy.
Wow, thank you for telling me that. Okay? He hangs his head in embarrassment over his achievements and begins to drift further away.
That is nothing to be ashamed of. Information is meaningless if it is not with those who can use it. There are far less honorable ways of making a living in this world.
I can think of some too. Some that I've done.
We all have passed. We all have done things we are not proud of, and we have to live with those decisions we have made, and that's just part of being human. His words are mumbled, so it takes a moment for them to sink in. I'm not sure what to say, so I settle on closing some of the distance between us in an attempt to console him. Admittedly, I expected as much. His jittiness and defensive posture are typical of a petty criminal. I imagine he's had a tough life. The warmth between us melts the dark mood that was beginning to form. A teasingly crooked smile blooms on Lou's face as he relaxes again.
Thank you.
I didn't say anything.
That's what I'm grateful for.
At that, I am able to chuckle and give vent grin in return.
It is no trouble.
Lou turns his head away bashfully and lifts his hand, steadily inching it towards me. My pulse starts to race. He lets it drop before he touches me. It is a relief as well as disappointment. Kikka, are you flirting with both of these guys? What's going on here? Once again, silence falls between us. Suddenly, Lou begins running forwards. There is nothing ahead of us. I'm completely caught off guard and left momentarily dumbfounded. I shout after him to come back, concern rising in my chest. He keeps up the pace but turns his head back to look at me, almost as if he's enjoying this. What is that? What? After a short sprint, he comes to a stop. As I reach him, he bends down and carefully picks something up off the sand. It's a strange, beautiful shell. It has many spikes, okay? It has many spikes.
Isn't it amazing? I wonder if other lakes have shells like this.
Well, it is beautiful in its own way. It's very true. I'm not able to stop myself from sighing.
I don't know. Is that what you were expecting to find?
It is. I like shells. The world is so dreary. Any flowers that bloom will wither and die in days without attention. I can't find a way to appreciate such fleeting things. It's only sad.
As he speaks, his voice descends into despair, dropping so low I almost don't make out what he says. I cannot think why this shell is impacting him so profoundly, but I want to comfort him somehow regardless of if I can fully comprehend him.
Shells are beautiful and they can persevere. That is something I respect.
It is good you were able to find what you were searching for.
That's the most neutral answer you can give to anyone ever.
I think so too.
He lets himself remain lost in his moment for a second longer, then gently offers his meaningful shell to me.
Why don't you keep it? It can be a reminder of me.
A spiky shell found from a very dangerous shore. I have no idea on what to say. Those words seem so harmless and yet foreboding. Despite my silence, he continues to hold the shell out for me to take. Cautiously, I reach up to accept the gift, afraid that a wrong move could somehow hurt the shell or even him. When I have it, Lou places both his hands over my hand and the shell.
Thank you for coming with me.
No problem. He continues to make it difficult to speak. It takes some effort to hide the bashfulness in my voice.
It was no trouble, Lou. Really. Thank you for this. However, even if you didn't give it to me, I would not forget you.
He looks happier than I've ever seen him as he presses my hands more tightly.
I'm so glad I met you.
Likewise. I'm happy we crossed paths.
I hope that will never change. If you think of me from time to time, it would make this all worthwhile.
I'm glad saying nothing. I'm glad. Even if it is a more generous view of this than I would give, I relish his statement. Lou is finally showing some optimism towards life. I still am unsure why Lou came here to begin with, but it eases my mind to think that he may not have to regret the choice. Lou pulls away, locking a door I barely peeked inside.
We can head back to the forest now.
Right. That is for the best since we still need to rest before sundown. We will take the smoothest route back to the clearing.
Do I look so fragile?
I'm not impressed with his attempt at humor and look squarely at him as I speak, my voice completely deadpan.
Anyone would have trouble with no shoes.
I figured someone like you would say I needed to toughen up.
I shake my head fondly. His elusive way of speaking has grown on me some.
Come on, we should go.
Together we return to the woods. In what feels like no time, we enter the clearing. Bemelle arrives at almost the same time and greets us.
I heard you two coming and thought it best if I came to join you.
Lou and I greet him in kind, though Lou still seems more reserved. The three of us quietly wait for the guide's arrival, occasionally chatting with one another as we rest.